Hi, my name is Alif Afifi. I'm from TBA1145A. For my presentation, I will be presenting World Economic Analysis. Before we start, there are three countries, which are Japan, China, and South Korea. I will analyze these countries' GDP growth, inflation rate, interest rate, and unemployment rate. Firstly, Japan's GDP growth rate has seen a drastic contraction from 2019, which is at negative 0.24%. Meanwhile, in 2020, it was negative 4.51% due to the global pandemic that hit Japan's domestic consumption and exports in the year 2020. Besides, in 2021, it rose by 1.62%. With strong policy support and high vaccination rates, it helped the Japanese economy to recover from the pandemic. Japan's inflation rate for the year 2019 was 0.47%. Next, in 2020, it was negative 0.03% due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Moreover, in 2021, it was negative 0.23% due to the governmental price controls, an aging population, and negative interest rates. Another factor is that Japan's economy recovered from the pandemic much slower than many other countries. Furthermore, Japan's interest rate for 2019, 2020, and 2021 was negative 0%. In the country's latest move to combat deflation and jumpstart economic growth, the Bank of Japan has lowered key interest rates to negative territory for the first time. To add more to that, in 2016, Japan implemented negative interest rates to combat decades of deflation by encouraging borrowing and spending. Moreover, Japan's unemployment rate in 2019 was 2.4%. Following that, in 2020, it was 2.8%. Japan's job availability ratio in 2020 was the lowest since 1975, showing the magnitude of the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on workers. Lastly, in 2021, it was 2.8% due to the increased cases of COVID-19, a highly contagious Omicron variant that negatively impacts the labor market. Moving on to China, the GDP growth rate for 2019 was 5.95% and for 2020 it was 2.24%. China's economy recovery has slowed in the second half of this year due to the lingering coronavirus pandemic control measures. Next, in 2021, it was 8.11%. It is the largest jump since 2011. China's economic activity has slowed after a strong rebound in the first half of 2021 due to the pandemic-related challenge. China cut its reserve requirement ratio by 50 basis points in December to counterbalance slowing economic growth. Moreover, China's inflation rate for 2019 was 2.9% and for 2020 it was 2.42%. Consumer demand increased as a result of pandemic prevention, control measures, and economic growth. Besides, in 2021, it was 0.98%. The country's inflation remained largely tame in 2021, despite a mild retreat against the backdrop of sustained economic recovery, while soaring prices emerged as a major threat in many parts of the world. China's interest rate for 2019 was 3%, while in 2020 it was 3.8%. China has refused to cut its benchmark lending rate in order to mitigate the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Moreover, in 2021, it was negative 0.02%. China cut its benchmark lending rate for the first time in nearly 2 years to help an economy strained by a property slump and coronavirus outbreak. Lastly, China's unemployment rate for 2019 was 4.52%. The job losses accelerated in mid-2018 after the United States imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. Next, in 2020, it was 5% as the economy slowed due to the peak of the coronavirus outbreak. Furthermore, in 2021, it was 4.82% due to the lack of jobs for graduates and shortage of qualified manufacturing employees. For the last country, South Korea's GDP growth rate for 2019 was 2.24% due to the global trade war and the worldwide chip industry downturn. Other than that, in 2020, it was negative 0.85% due to the global COVID-19 pandemic that weakened South Korean exports and consumer spending. Moreover, in 2021, it was 4.02%. South Korea's real GDP growth rate after adjusted for inflation expanded 4% in 2021 from the previous year. South Korea's inflation rate for 2019 was 0.38% and for 2020 it was 0.54%. The country's headline inflation has remained below 1% for 2 years in a row, owing to lower crude oil and service prices. Besides, in 2021, it was 2.5% due to the inflationary pressures on both supply and demand, driven by rising crude oil prices and domestic demand recovery. Other than that, South Korea's unemployment rate for 2019 was 1.5% and for 2020 it was 0.5%. The country's central bank maintained its benchmark interest rate at a record low due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, in 2021, it was 1%. The central bank hiked the benchmark interest rate to 1% in an effort to combat inflation and enormous household debts. Finally, South Korea's unemployment rate for 2019 was 3.75%. Meanwhile, in 2020, it was 3.93% due to the economic implication from the COVID-19 outbreak. Lastly, in 2021, it was 3.53%. The country revealed that employment increased from a year ago and it indicating that the economy is still recovering despite the recent jump in COVID-19 cases and the emergence of the Omicron variant. That's all from me. Thank you for watching.